The Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro have just gone official as Google's latest flagship smartphones, but at a glance there actually isn't all that much new here. So what's actually changed? Well, here's everything that we could find in our super short hands-on, so let's get into it. Thanks for watching 9to5 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. Realistically, the unique design language of the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro really did stand out in a sea of smartphones of last year, but it's one of the core design elements that has sort of been tweaked this time around. Regardless of which colour that you do pick, the Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro will be one uniform colour throughout, from top to bottom, minus the camera bar and those polished sides, as you can see, and really new courtesy of leaks ahead of this Made by Google launch event. The Pixel 6 and 6 Pro were big phones in their own right and something that was surely for the best. The Pixel 7 and 7 Pro have the same display sizes, but they're a little bit less cumbersome to use overall, at least in our experience. Both of Google's latest phones trim down their bezels and overall hardware a little bit here and there, and the end result is a device that is slightly easier to hold. If you thought of last year's phones, or at least last year's phones were too big, then this likely won't change your mind, or at least entirely, but it's a nice change overall. Sadly, it does mean that the cases for the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro won't actually fit this year's generation. We're not sure why, but the buttons on the Pixel 7 Pro, they're mounted quite a bit lower than they are on the 6 Pro 2 on that right side. Maybe that's for reachability, as this is a large phone after all, but it's another reason that your existing case might not cut it and definitely won't fit comfortably. Also, on top of that, the millimeter wave window at the top is now a little bit far less obvious and is more in line with the likes of Samsung and Apple with limited visibility. That might bother you, it might have bothered you originally, but overall it's something that we thought we'd note. You'll also be pleased to find that the Pixel 6 Pro's Uber display curve has been tamed on either side of the 7 Pro here. It probably won't make it drastically easier to use with a screen protector or for usability, but this is definitely a step in the right direction overall. But it is hard to deny that the Pixel 7's flat screen is definitely much better to use, especially if it is completely flat. Under the hood of the Pixel 7 series is that Tensor G2 processor, the second generation of that, which gives Google an opportunity to work on things like performance, heat, and the efficiency issues that were found in the previous model. This has a potential to be by far the biggest upgrade in Google's new phones, as well as the Signal as well, but with such limited hands-on time, we simply have had no chance to truly work that out. Our team, though, who had this hands-on time, said it felt almost identical in performance, but we will delve deeper in the coming days, so definitely stay tuned. Two of the main new features of the Pixel 7 series, though, they come from the camera, with cinematic blur available for both phones as a video recording feature. We were able to briefly try it out, and there are some samples from Google that we put on screen now. It seemed to work reasonably well on non-human subjects. We picked a pair of Pixel Buds and it seemed to pick it out and keep it in focus and blur that background quite effectively. The other new feature is macro focus, which does work brilliantly with the Pixel 7 Pro's ultra-wide camera. The level of detail is excellent, and we were actually pretty impressed at how close you could get, that's a 13mm limit, without that focus dropping, and overall it's a solid macro option to have that wasn't there previously, but you'll kind of have to take our word on it, at least at this stage. We're also able to briefly try out that new 30x zoom on the Pixel 7 Pro, and yeah, it seems to work fine as well. Details remain sharp even at that maximum zoom level, and the stabilization that Google touted during the launch event seems to work fine as well. It feels very familiar to what Samsung does with its own space zoom, just on seems to have a far less dramatic branding, and of course can't reach quite as far with that digital zoom range. You may as well be wondering about the face unlock feature that has been brought back on the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro. This is a feature that's been missing from Pixel phones since its brief introduction back with the Pixel 4 series, and it was one that people seem to love. The good news is it's back. The bad news is, unfortunately, we haven't actually been able to test it out, as Google's hands-on opportunity was a bit limited as to what we can actually do. We'll certainly be excited to try it out in our forthcoming reviews, though, as we are really looking forward to seeing how this works, as it will be a key differentiator for people out there, especially those who had problems with the fingerprint scanner on the previous generation. Something else that will require a bit of extensive testing to see if it's a problem is the battery life on that smaller Pixel 7, which actually loses about 300 mAh from the prior generation. Hopefully that won't have too much of an impact, as battery life was one of our favourite things about the smaller phone last year, but on the bright side, this year's $599 model feels noticeably lighter in the hand, and that might be a reason for that cut of that battery capacity. So at this ridiculously early stage, the Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro are very much showing that Google is sticking to that TikTok release cycle, or moving into that TikTok release cycle. As we said before, that's certainly, or at least probably, for the best this time around. Still, these are pretty minor changes on the whole. Realistically, if you have the Pixel 6 or 6 Pro today, then it's probably not even worth considering upgrading, at least at this point in time, especially as Google's trading values remain somewhat underwhelming overall. But that might change in time. We could never give a definitive answer after such a brief time with this duo. Because of that, our advice is just to stay tuned for our full review for the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro and that Pixel Watch as well. So if you want to know more, let's discuss that in the comments. What do you want to know about these devices? We'll try to answer as many as possible over the coming days. But as always, I hope you enjoyed this little brief look at the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro. This is Damien with 9to5Google saying thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.